Hello, and welcome to another DDi CADcast. I'm your host, Joseph Richter, and today we're going to talk about SolidWorks 2014, What's New for Drawings. This will be part 1 of 3. And for SolidWorks 2014, What's New? The Drawing View palette has been updated such that all of your drawing views will now remain in the View palette even after being placed on the drawing. Any placed drawing views will now have an icon to indicate that they are inserted into the drawing. This will enable you to add the same view again within the same drawing sheet. In addition to this, shaded drawing views now offer a high quality display mode, and this will help to clean up any shaded views that you might add to your drawing of thin-walled parts that happen to have rib features behind them, or perhaps an assembly drawing with a thin-walled part in front of components that are touching the rear side face of that component. This will prevent the back components from bleeding through. Again, this was never an issue with non-shaded views, but with shaded views it never offered a high quality mode, so the draft quality mode that it was in allowed back components to bleed through. Also, within a drawing, any notes that you have on your drawing can now be switched from one drawing view to another drawing view. So in other words, in the past, whatever view that you were closest to when you added a note, that's the view that it attached to. What's new for 2014 is the fact that we'll be able to reattach that note to a different view. In the past, we would, cut and paste and click on the new view to paste it onto to reattach it, but in doing so, you wound up moving the note. This new feature, or this new function rather, will allow you to simply right-click on the note and reattach it to a different view, all without moving it or, like I said, copying and pasting it. In addition to this, the other note enhancement is the fact that we can now override the note's case value. So in other words, if you typed in a note with uppercase and lowercase letters, we can now force uppercase as the default setting for that note. We can now force uppercase as the new case for that note. In addition to that, we can now set under Tools Options for the document properties, so this would be a template setting, the ability to enforce all uppercase on your notes. This might create an issue such as for millimeters on units, in which case it does also offer an exclusion area that you can type in the items for it to ignore when enforcing this all uppercase rule. And over here in SolidWorks 2014, you will notice in the View palette that the views that are already within the model remain here in the View palette. They're simply denoted with this icon here that they are on the drawing. In addition to that, you'll notice that there is the Diametric and Trimetric views available from the View palette. By having views that are already in the drawing here in the View palette, it will assist you in adding the same view onto the drawing if necessary. In addition to that, we mentioned that thin-walled components sometimes tend to bleed through the model view when it's shaded. Now, this tends to go away when you zoom in on the view, okay, but in order to ask SolidWorks to calculate that view, we now have the option called High Quality Display Mode for these shaded views. So again, I just toggle high quality and it gets rid of that thin-walled component feature from bleeding through onto the far side of the wall. Then the next thing that we mentioned was annotations. You'll notice that this note is currently attached to the auxiliary block view. In the past, if I wanted to reattach it, I could cut and paste, which means that the note would probably move. In this case, 2014, we can now right-click on your note and specify attachment. I could attach this to the drawing sheet or attach it to a different view. So now if I select a different drawing view, you'll notice that the note updates. In fact, the note has properties calling on the view name and the model within the view. So again, you can attach to a new view. Then the last thing to mention here is if this note was supposed to all be uppercase, I can now override the note's case value. So I can say all uppercase. This includes any properties and their values. So like the thin-walled part was named thin-wall part, but it had mixed case. And there is now a setting for your templates under drafting standard to enforce all uppercase as part of the drafting standard. In addition to this is an exclusion list, so you can type in common items such as units, so that way they will not get overridden to be uppercase. Also, what's new in SolidWorks 2014 for drawings, they've added the ability to replace the model in any or all the drawing views for an open drawing. Now let me clarify here. This can be either a part or an assembly, and you can swap it out with either a part or an assembly file type. So for example, in 2013 and prior, we could not replace a part view with an assembly view. Not to mention the procedure for replacing a drawing view was slightly different. In fact, it had to be for the entire drawing, and this was done in the open dialog box. You just clicked on the references button and swapped out the reference. But in 13, like I said, you'd have to replace a part with a part or an assembly with an assembly. But new with 14, we can interchange parts and assemblies within any drawing view. So that could be one drawing view or all of the drawing views for your open drawing. In addition, they've enhanced drawing view labels such that we now have label tags. So in other words, if you edit a view label, for example on a detail view or on an auxiliary view, if you edit that label and you delete the scale, in the past there was no good way to get it back. Now, however, we have label tags, and these label tags, we can go in there and click, and it will pull that drawing view property or attribute for that drawing view label. In addition to this, we now have specific font control over each element of our view labels. So for example, you can set a specific font for the view name. You can set a specific font for the view label. So detail could have font, A-A could have a separate font, and then you could have the scale in a separate font, and then the scale 1 to 5 in yet another font. So this gives you expanded control over each element within the drawing view labels. And again, over here in SolidWorks 2014, we now have the ability to replace a model on an open drawing. So you go to replace model, and you can simply browse for the replacement component. Now what's significant about this enhancement is the fact that we can replace a part model, and I'm going to replace all views here, with an assembly file. Okay, previously this is something that we could not do. We could swap parts with parts or assemblies with assemblies, but now I'm able to replace a part file with an assembly file. And again, I can do this on individual views or all views at once. The next item to mention here are in regard to view labels. When you go to edit the view label, and if you take a look over here on the left hand side, you'll notice that we now have label tags. They're grayed out because they are already applied in the view label, but if you delete some of these items, then the items that you've deleted become available. So I could set scale, hit a space, maybe add the delimiter. And of course, in the past we could always swipe over and edit the font for each element of a view label. But here's what's new. When you go into the tools options for dock props, we can go down to views and the type of view we're talking about, in this case a detail view, and I can set font settings for each drawing view label element and save that off as my template. And next up for SolidWorks 2014, what's new? The section view assist has been created in order to allow for the editing of section views. So in SolidWorks 2013, they added the new section view user interface to accommodate generating section views. Well, now in 2014 we have the ability to edit section views created in SolidWorks 2013 utilizing that section view user interface. We can now edit with the section view assist tool in 2014. So the nice capabilities for creating this section views we can now utilize to edit section views. Keep in mind that if you edit a section view manually by editing the sketch, then you kind of destroy the ability to utilize this section view assist tool. But if you created this section view in 2013 using the section view user interface, in 14 you'll now be able to edit those section views with the section view assist. In addition to this, they've added the capability to now section a surface body. Now, this was a limitation in previous releases. So, for example, if I downloaded a file and it wasn't yet a solid body and I tried to make a drawing of it, when I ran a section view through there, it wouldn't generate the section view. It would show the whole part. So, what's been added in SolidWorks 2014 is the option to cut surface bodies. So now it'll look hollow, okay, but you can go ahead and add a crosshatch to it. But the fact is, section view will now recognize a surface body. And then the next thing to mention here is there is a new document property to accommodate your next sheet title block. So in other words, in the past, when you generate a new sheet, well, for starters, SolidWorks added a setting that turned off showing the sheet format dialog on Add New Sheet, which always confused me, so I always tell my classes where to turn it back on, because most companies use a separate title block for Sheet 2 anyway, so having that toggle was kind of confusing. The fact that it was always showing the Sheet 1 title block in every page, until you change this setting in order to show the sheet format dialog and add new sheet. Well, now we'll be able to specify a sheet 2 title block for any additional sheets added to a drawing, in which case I can now see a cause or a case for that toggle being there to not bug the user when they're adding a new sheet, because it'll already know what title block to use for the second and additional sheets. So I feel like they're just closing the loop on that other enhancement. And now back over here in SolidWorks 2014, I can right click on a section view and edit the cutting line. Provided this section view was created with the SolidWorks 2013 section view user interface, then I can edit the cutting line. So the same great tool that we utilized to generate this section view can now be taken advantage of to edit the section view. Now, there is one word of caution. If that section view is generated with a sketch, or like in SolidWorks 2012 and prior, likewise, if the section had been edited in 2013, regardless of how it was created, you'll notice that you will not be able to edit the section view with the section view assist. You'll have to still utilize the sketch to modify to update the section view. The next thing I want to point out here is that this component is a surface body. So as I take a cross section here in the part file, you'll notice that it is in fact a surface body. Aside from that, you can see that here in the tree. Now, what's significant in SolidWorks 2014 is the fact that when we generate a section view, you'll note that in 13 and prior it wouldn't cut the body. But here in 14 we have the option to specify cut surface bodies, in which case you can see that it is now actually generating my section view. So again, I know that was subtle. Well, if I toggle this, you can see that it is in fact creating the section view of that surface body. The next great enhancement to talk about here is under Tools Options for Document Properties. We now have the ability to specify the sheet format for a new sheet to this drawing. When I add a new sheet, just simply browse for your Sheet 2 title block. and then map it, sheet 2. And this means that every new sheet that I add will now take advantage or utilize that sheet 2 title block template. This, I think, justifies the Tools Options, System Options for Drawings setting of Show Sheet Format dialog on Add New Sheet. You can actually now uncheck this because SolidWorks will know what page you want for sheet 2, which title block you want for sheet 2. So with that, when you hit OK, you just add a new sheet, and then your page 2 title block comes across. Likewise, a new page. Again, utilizing that sheet 2 title block, which of course is different than sheet 1. Thanks again for joining us on another DDi CADcast. I'm your host, Joseph Richter, and please be sure to check out more tech tips and CADcasts on our YouTube channel, found at youtube.com/DDi CAD, or our tech blog at ddicad.com/tech center.